This reading is from The Rays of the One Light by Swami Priyanka. Week 47, Reincarnation, the Spiral Staircase. Sure. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Bhagavan Sri. In the book of Revelation, chapter 3, Jesus Christ tells us, "Him that overcometh will I make a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go no more out." There is a difference between church dogmas, which are based on reasoned deductions from scriptural statements, and the pronouncements of wisdom, which are based on the inner realization of scriptural truths. Reason, like a train, can only follow already existing tracks of human experience. Human memory, being short, is seldom able to cross back over the threshold of a person's present existence. Biblical references to previous lifetimes on earth are overlooked in the deductive process, and we find them, therefore, excluded from the body of official dogma. Nevertheless, such references exist. The Bible itself presents them, as does Jesus in this passage, not as abstract teaching, but a direct personal perception of truth. In the same way, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita silences Arjuna's reasonable doubts on the subject, not by reasoned argument, but by the frank statement contained in the 4th chapter of that great scripture, "Arjun, you and I have passed through many worlds. I know all of them, though you, O chastiser of foes, recall them not." Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind.
The topic of reincarnation is something that crosses our mind. A lot of times as we grow older, in the younger days, we don't tend to think so much about it. But time and again, it has been proven that this is a scientific fact. While a scientist might still disagree and want to look for more proofs, many of you would have read a lot of literature around past life regression and how people have remembered some of their past lives. On our path also there are a lot of examples that Swami and Master share. The point about the whole story of reincarnation is quite simple, that we are all on a journey and it's on the wheel of life. And as long as we are caught in this drama of wanting to be in this world, we have the free will to be continuing to be on that wheel till we reach that point of enlightenment when we realize that what we really want is God, and we want to perfect our souls so that we can merge back with God. But it takes a lot of time, eons of lifetimes. It says even to reach the human level, it takes somewhere between 8 to 10 million lifetimes and incarnations. So, and there is the story where Master shares that he could even remember his life as a diamond when he started and how he moved through. He shared a number of examples, like once when he was in England visiting a place of historic significance, he asked the curator there, was there a toilet here? And the guard who was there got quite upset. Why is he asking for all this information? And the curator answered, yes, in ancient times there used to be a toilet here that old kings used. And Master could relate to that memory. Of course, he was an avatar and he could relate to many memories. But as mortal souls, we still might have had one-off experiences where we are able to remember. Swami says children particularly are able to, in their early years, sometimes relate very easily to things in their life in the past. And everything that we bring with us in this lifetime, whether it is the tastes that we like or dislike, whether it is the attitudes that we bring in this life, it could be the deficiencies that we have or the talents that we have. It's not so much about DNA, but it is about the sum total of the life experiences that we have had over many lifetimes. And so There's a little story I could share with you that Master has written and spoken in many of his talks, which he explains as the essence of reincarnation. So there was this man who led an okay life and was spiritual. And towards the end of his life, as he was dying, an angel came to him and asked him that, so is there any last wish that you have? And the man said, yes, I have one wish, and that is that in this lifetime I have suffered a lot with illnesses, and so I would like to have a healthy body so that I'm able to live through life comfortably in my next life. And the angel said, okay, so be it, it will be granted. And soon enough, the man reincarnated with a huge body which was absolutely fit and healthy. Unfortunately, he had a high metabolism but not a lot of wealth. And he struggled in that lifetime to keep himself well fed. And then at the end of that life, as he was dying, the angel came back and said, so you had a good life, is there any wish that you have? And he said, yes, I have one wish. I want to be healthy, but I also want to be healthy, wealthy. There should be enough money in my bank so that I'm able to feed myself well. And so in the next life, he was healthy and he was wealthy. And he had a good life. And he came to the end of his life and the angel appeared again. And the angel asked him, so are you ready to go? Is there any desire? And he said, yes, there is one desire. In this life, I've been very, very lonely. And in the next life, I want to have a good wife. And the angel said, okay, the wish will be granted. And in his next life, he was very healthy. He had good amount of wealth and he had a beautiful wife. And the wife was very loyal to him and he really admired her. But she died early. And when she died, he was totally grief-stricken. So he was worshipping her gloves and her shoes and various memorabilia that they had around the house. And in grief, his end came soon too. So the angel came back and said, very good life, ready to go back to God, any wishes? And the man said, yes, I have one regret, and my wife died too soon. So in my next life, I want a wife who lives till the end of my life. And the angel said, the wish is granted. And in his next life, so you know everything that he had, health, wealth, a good wife who lived very long. But as she grew old, he lost interest in her. And he was attracted to his young secretary, who was very beautiful. And he then was so much infatuated by the young secretary that he dumped his wife and left with her. The secretary was a very beautiful and very smart woman. And soon enough, she took charge of all his wealth and dumped him and left for a young, handsome man. The man was once again on his deathbed, and this time the angel appeared again. And the angel said, ready to go back? And he said, absolutely ready to go back. I don't want health, I don't want wealth, I don't want wives, I have no desire but for God. And that master said is in a sense the story of reincarnation. Till we get to the point where we realize that all of this is not what we are seeking. It is the perfection of our soul that we are seeking. It's a beautiful analogy that is the spiral stairway that we shared in the reading today. And if you look at nature, you find many things are spiral. A tree, when it is born in the seed, it has two spirals. One spiral goes down, which is the root, through which its sap travels to the ground. And there is the other spiral which grows up into the bark and branches and leaves. And life pretty much is similar to that seed. When we come in, we can make a choice whether we want to go down and be in the past karma and enjoy all the problems that we had and lead a life in the senses, or do we want to go up the spiral staircase and find God? Again, in nature, if you take the example of moths, for instance, yeah, Yeah, they have this, you might remember your biology, so they have a compound eye. And what happens in the compound eye is when you see light, you see it slowly, slowly as you go in a spiral. And so if you see moths or if you see these, this Diwali insects that come out under the street light in my childhood, I remember seeing swirls of them go up the spiral and reach the light. And when they reach the light, that's pretty much the end of their life. And that's also how our lives should be. We should slowly climb up the spiral stairway, and it's good that it is spiral and it's not straight, because then you just have to make a steep climb. It's a bit like the roads around the hills. Why don't they go straight in one line? No, you need all the energy and all the power to be able to go slowly, learn from each of those experiences, amass and aggregate them, so that when we reach the top, there is nothing that we want but God. Master used to say, Divine Mother gives a lot of toys in the beginning. The toys such as a nice family, wealth, the nice job that we love, the beautiful car, the big home, what have you. Those are all toys, and we play with those toys lifetime after lifetime. Till in the end we say, Mother, I don't want any of these toys anymore. I'm quite tired of the mundane, repetitive life that we go through and the challenges that we face as we go along the way. So, when we talk of reincarnation, Master emphasized two key points there. One, he said, is you should focus on knowing yourself. And when it comes to knowing ourselves, it is about recognizing those many tendencies that we carry from past lifetimes. Sometimes they are, weaknesses, and it could be a problem like anger. It could be something like being very defensive, or being excessively proud of who we are, being too attached and being in the ego. All of us have some or other of these defects which have been accumulated over lifetimes. Our job is to find out what it is. And usually in a lifetime, they say there are just one or two key lessons that we come back to learn. If we are able to know ourselves well enough to catch when that comes, then we learn to transcend the karma. Every time you start to get angry, if you can recognize what is happening and that the test is coming in, can you hold your anger back and relax in that moment and offer that test up to God? Then things start to work out beautifully. There is this example of Saint Teresa that Master liked to share. He said she was a very, very spiritually advanced soul, and also very beautiful and attractive as a woman. And she led a deeply spiritual life. But at one point, one day, she got attracted to a young man who came by to visit her. And at that point, Jesus said to her, Teresa, I will send you angels. Now, do you want to be with a man or an angel? And she immediately caught herself and she ran upstairs and went away from it. So it's comforting to know that it just doesn't happen to us, the temptations of doing wrong things. It happens even to the saints. But the beauty is, God jealously protects the saints. So if we are in the right direction, then the Guru and God comes to really give us the protection, so that that karma we are able to blast away and go up the staircase into our further spiritual progress. So knowing ourselves is one key element, and the other is being able to change ourselves. We get so caught up in who we are and how we have so many self-definitions for ourselves that that is the play of ego. It's so difficult to let go of those self-definitions. And when that comes, we do everything. And to the extent that we say, okay, in this lifetime I got it all wrong, and I don't want to try now. Now I'll do well next time. But that in itself is a game of Satan. There is no doing well next time. If you can't do it in this time, what makes you think you'll be able to do it well next time? You have evolved enough to catch yourself and realize that things aren't going well, but that is where faith comes in. And when we believe in God and Gurus, they're there to protect us. We put one hand up and they come with two hands to rescue us. So knowing ourselves, being able to bring in the change that we need to in our life, and then making that firm resolve that this is how I'm going to lead my life and I want to find God in this lifetime. If we have that determination, we will be able to knock away a lot of the little things that we have come to learn as lessons. Uh, in the book Wisdom of Yogananda, and I would recommend those of you who are interested in this topic to read that book, it's available here. It talks about karma, death, and reincarnation. Death is a topic which comes very closely to reincarnation again. And a lot of us fear death. And Master very beautifully explains the experience of death in that book. And he says that at the end of the day, it is probably that 2 to 5 seconds of suffocation that you experience in the heart and lung. That is the pain that you remember from previous lifetimes. And that is what makes you fear death, and that is what makes you want to stay back. Sometimes, of course, souls are caught between this world and the next. They don't go to the astral world because they are so caught in the drama of life. And Asha, in one of her talks, shares the example of the World Trade Center accident, and we see a lot of this happening around us too. So there, people were in the thick of their careers, just got into office, and in comes the plane, and they moved out of their life. And they were so attached, many of them, to their jobs, their families, that the soul just refused to make that astral travel. It's the same thing that happened in many of the concentration camps in Europe, where people died of immense suffering at a time when they were not ready to. And the fear and the attachment that they had did not help the soul make a beautiful journey. And sometimes when people go unwillingly, Master says, they go into the grey zone in the astral plane, and then they are pretty much so much lost and not thinking. It's almost like totally drunk. You go there unconscious and you come back very quickly to start yet another life. And I remember the story of one of our devotees in Gurgaon, Nayaswami Vich. So he was the only Nayaswami at that point who had taken his initiation was in Gurgaon. And he led a very simple life and was an old man. And wherever you met him, he exuded love and joy. He would hug everyone, and never have I seen him ever upset about anything. And he would come to visit Swamiji every time. There was so much of devotion and patience. He would wait for hours if he had to meet Swami. And Swami, of course, treated him like a good friend, and they were always in great joy together. I remember the last time I met him was when at Shivani and Damodar's wedding, where he was standing right next to me, and he looked perfectly fine. And a week later, we got to know that he left his body. So in his family, only he was on the path of our path, and so the family at that point, did the Hindu rituals and his cremation and everything happened. And then a few days later, we got to know that he left his body. And Dharamdas and Nirmala went to his home and to do an astral ascension for him. And then his sons were explaining how he passed away. And they said he was completely conscious to the last moment. And he explained to them the process that he was going through, and how he was withdrawing from the senses and how he got into the spine. And then he said, now this is happening, and now this is happening, and now I'm exiting the body and I'm merging into the infinite. So right until the end, he was completely conscious. And that for me was one example of exactly how Master described it. Nirmala shared it with us in a satsang. It's exactly how Nayaswami Beach left his life. So all of this is so much true. If we want to live a life like that, and if we want to lead a life in God, in grace, it's very much up to us. It is just the ego that comes in our way. And that is the path that we are on. How do we transcend the ego and emerge back beautifully into the infinite? I'd like to close with a little simile that Master shared. He said, all of us are like, you remember how it looks when you light the gas stove? There are small holes in the gas stove. And as you turn on the gas and light it with a lighter, all of them glow. It is similarly that the prana, that the divine life that God has given us, is glowing through each of us. And each of us have our own character and we are all glowing. And at some point, when the stove is turned off, the flame goes away. And then Master shared it that then you become cold flesh because you left the body. So that's all there is to the drama of life. Now it's about us, whether we make the right choices. Do we choose to know God, to change ourselves, and to let go of our ego and allow God and Gurus to work through us? That's the story of reincarnation.